Benchmark, the voice of business. Presented by LMD.
On this edition of Benchmark, Jonathan Allis, Managing Director and CEO of Hatton National Bank, joins us in the studio today as we turn the spotlight on the banking sector. Then, LMD columnist and market analyst Hasta Premaratna brings us up to date on the stock market. And we talk to TNS Lanka Senior Project Director Mihirani Disanayaka for her analysis of TNS's recent island-wide survey. That's the lineup for Benchmark.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Benchmark. I'm Savitri Rodrigo. In our studios today is Jonathan Allis, the Managing Director and CEO of Hatton National Bank, who will take us through a closer look at banking in Sri Lanka. Good to have you once again in our studios, Jonathan.
Very pleased to be here. Thank you for the invite, Savitri.
If you do look at the banking sector, what are you seeing at this point of time?
It's a good time to be in banking. The stability of the banking industry is coming through quite strongly in terms of customer sentiment as well as investor confidence, which has actually helped Sri Lanka over the last so many years through thick and thin. But most recently, what we are also seeing is a lot of competition. There's a lot of new developments, there's a lot of technology coming, but if I just dwell on a moment on competition, the low interest rates, to some extent, credit growth being hampered, etc., means that sometimes we tend to trod on each other's toes for transactions, and it's making it excite. Sometimes we might be forgetting some of the tenor risks, some of the actual risks entails, and pricing may not be commensurate. But to some extent, it has been a buyer's market for a while, but hopefully with there being new projects and new investment opportunities coming in the not too distant future, there'll be enough for all of us to do.
Well, we certainly hope so. The repurchase rate has been maintained at 6.5, the reverse repurchase rate at 8%. If we are generally speaking, do you agree with the current monetary policy stance in the country?
I do. The fact that we have had two very supportive budgets and the fact that we have also been helped by the oil prices, you found that we are able to maintain inflation at very low levels. That helps the central bank to continue with an expansionary monetary policy. It permits it to maintain the rates fairly low, stimulate credit growth, and thereby stimulate economic activity, which is critical for Sri Lanka to in moving forward. But what we would like to see is some of that growth now coming more in the SME sector and consumer expenditure and consumer investments, etc., in addition to the various government as well as corporate credit growth that we have witnessed over the last 2-3 years.
Speaking of credit growth, the private sector growth from commercial banks increased 11.5% in January year-on-year. So if you look at the private sector, can you see the private sector actually sustaining that growth momentum? What are you seeing in terms of credit?
I hope so. That would probably be my first response. Private sector growth is improving. We saw a fairly flat first half in 2014. Then there was more economic activity in the second half. Business confidence, consumer confidence has improved, and the effects of a low inflation, low interest rate is setting in. There's a little bit of uneasiness, people looking for direction at this particular moment, which I believe is only a very short-term thing and which will probably ease out over the next 2-3 months. Thereafter, the expectation is with the lower taxation, with the higher disposable income, we as banks are looking forward to a huge amount of consumer activity, in particular in areas in whether it's very specific to banks, car loans, housing loan activity. We see educational loans. So we see the educational sector, the vehicle sector, real estate markets all being more active, and banks having a greater part to play in supporting consumer activities going forward.
So you mentioned banks having a greater part to play. What sort of a part should they be playing? What needs to be the drivers here?
For banks, I think we need to provide the convenience. We need to make it affordable. So having these low interest rates is a step in the right direction, because I think we need to be careful. We can't go back to having consumer and SME rates at very high levels. Repayment becomes difficult. We are increasing the debt burden on families and on households. The current rates, where you have your deposits at around 6, corporates borrow at around 8, the SMEs and the retails are around 10 and 12, are rates that actually help economic activity and will stimulate growth, as well as people will be able to repay. In addition to making it affordable, I think you could also make banking more convenient by giving them more choice and more channels to operate through, taking into account that today's consumer is busy. He and she is working very hard. Banks can just go that extra mile to provide the convenience, doorstep banking, online banking, internet banking, mobile banking are areas that all of us should venture into to provide that convenience.
Standard & Poor's recently noted that the change in Sri Lanka's political setting adds to the uncertainty over the fate of the earlier administration's policies related to economic activity, reforms, monetary policy and banking sector consolidation. Now, there was a lot of dialogue, a lot of rhetoric, a lot of discussion about the consolidation. Can you just give me an idea as to the future direction of this banking consolidation plans?
I think we should continue to seek consolidation opportunities. If I'm allowed to take it in 3 steps, the easier ones is, I'll just move up to bank from microfinance, finance companies and banking. I think it's important that the small organizations are regulated. So it's important that you have a framework set so that you don't have indiscipline in this market. And when you bring regulation and you bring in discipline, and people have got to behave responsibly in the marketplace, that would actually entail some amount of companies, players in the microfinance space, and to a lesser extent in the non-banking financial institution space, they may have to move out, or they may have to consolidate with some of their bigger peers. And you would have a lesser number of responsible players in the market providing value-added services to the clientele in the NBFI and in the microfinance segments. In the banking segment, again, I started off by saying it's very competitive. And not only for that reason, and not only for the reason of having big balance sheets and, having stronger investor and credit ratings, but Sri Lanka at the end of the day is a small economy, a small country with 20 million people. I think we need to cooperate, we need to consolidate, we need to collaborate in order to compete, and not amongst ourselves. We need to now start looking at international markets. There we need to get a little bigger. So I would think as long as regulators, governments set the framework and set the tone, then the companies who are interested in getting together should go ahead and look for good, meaningful consolidation opportunities. I think it's a good thing if it's done at the request of or based on stakeholder aspirations of both entities.
We'll be returning to this discussion. We're taking a short break now. When we return, Jonathan Alice discusses rural and SME banking in Sri Lanka as well as global trends.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
We can show you a world, shining, shimmering, splendid, amazing, beautiful, dazzling, wondrous space for you and me. A whole new world, the future's got a whole new world for you.
The most advanced technology now on multiple smart devices for total convenience. Welcome to H&B New World Banking.
So welcome back to the show. We now continue our discussion with the Managing Director and CEO of HNB, Jonathan Alice. Jonathan, earlier you mentioned about SME banking, the rural sector being more involved in the growth. How can banks actually better reach out to these segments, the rural segment as well as the SME segment?
Banks have been trying to reach out as much as possible, Savitri. But there's a lot more that we can do, and that is admitted. We have gone and increased the number of branches. Now we have penetrated our brick and mortar branch network through all parts of the country. All banks got involved in doing that. Now we are moving into the next phase where you can see all the banks are actually introducing mobile banking, which is really important, internet banking. We are spreading our ATMs around the country. So in terms of access to transactional banking, there's been significant improvement. Now what we need to do is a little more of the inclusion part. The financial literacy is taking place. We have, as banks, a huge credit appetite that is growing within us to start funding SMEs as well as businesses lower down the value chain. What would help is if the chambers and at a national level, if we have frameworks that would actually help. We talk of bringing them into the tax system, bringing them into actually doing their financial accounts, providing them incentives for those good SMEs who are writing financial accounts, who are actually paying their taxes. Those should be carrots. There should be carrots attached to it, rather than waiting for them to produce this to hammer them. There'll be a reluctance, and then they would actually not be willing to get into the system, and banks would still continue to then fund them rather blindly, not knowing the full picture. So I think it's a national effort, and it's in the interest of the country to do that, because our corporates are doing a good job going out into the export market. I think export is critical. We need to give them confidence. We need to give them more knowledge. We need to also provide networks to them. It's the top corporates would actually go and know who their buyers and who their suppliers are overseas. But I think we need to create that structure where even our SMEs would venture in and find out whom could they sell their products with. That will also push to improving the quality.
Interesting take on the amount of opportunities there are for the SME sector, really. Who do you think should be driving this?
Without trying to sort of pass it on to anybody specific, I think banks have a role to play. I think the SME organizations, the SME chambers have got a role to play. But in addition, at a national level, I see a great opportunity for the Ministry of Industries. It's a huge enough opportunity to have a ministry for SME itself. The Ministry important in trade, with particular focus on exports. They all need to get involved in creating frameworks that will actually help and bring these SMEs forward.
We've been seeing banking actually sort of growing exponentially into the or the internet area. When you look at the world, what are the global trends like?
It's all about responding to customers' needs and then providing them choice and convenience. So customers are saying today, no matter whether I'm a high net worth individual or, I'm one of your mass market customers, give me that choice. Gone are the days when, your private banking client only wanted to come to your office, sit, have a cake or a date with a cup of coffee and do his transactions. He also wants to do one or two transactions on the go, in his vehicle, in his office. It's happening all the time. It's happening in Sri Lanka. So you will see a lot of developments, Savitri, both internationally, but with Sri Lanka not lagging too far behind, where we would be driving lots of internet banking facilities. Mobile will overtake internet in a mighty big way. And then the ATM capability, the product development and the amount of cards, both in terms of virtual, in terms of prepaids, in addition to the current basic debit cards and credit cards that we use now, all that will improve in order to provide greater convenience and facilitate transaction banking in Sri Lanka to the next level.
Jonathan, what do you think would be the operating environment for Sri Lankan banks going forward? What are you seeing?
Savitri, I'm bullish. I think we're going to have a good time. The next 2-3 years, economic growth is of paramount importance. It should cut across all segments, not just be limited to a few or the high-end corporate. We need to see the involvement of the SMEs and all peoples of all walks in the country. This will give great opportunity for banks to align themselves to national policy, which will give them their greatest value, and then drive with the economic plan of the country their own strategies and their visions, which will then be aligned and would stimulate growth. And in particular, I'm looking at driving technology, providing convenience, as I said before, help supporting the SME, supporting the micro entrepreneurs, and developing the rural economy as well, taking advantage of some of the infrastructural developments that have taken place, which will facilitate this movement to doing business outside the Western province in a more efficient and productive manner.
Thank you. Great talking to you, Jonathan, as always.
Thanks very much, Savitri.
So we've been talking to the Managing Director and CEO of Hatton National Bank, Jonathan Allis. Continuing on the other side is Anushan Selvaraja.
Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC. Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC.
We can show you a world, shining, shimmering, splendid, amazing, beautiful, dazzling, wondrous space for you and me. A whole new world, the future's got a whole new world for you.
The most advanced technology now on multiple smart devices for total convenience. Welcome to H&B New World Banking.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. We'll take a close look now at the latest on the bourse with market analyst and LMD columnist Hasita Premaratna. Welcome, Hasita. Now, first, just give us a brief overview of the state of the bourse at this point of time.
Yeah, we saw in the last month market coming down quite drastically. In fact, from about 7,500 levels, which it was in January, it has gradually started to come down and went below the 7,000 levels and touched a low of about 6,800 points. And then with the recent rate cut that took place in the middle of April, we saw the index again starting to pick up. So then again it crossed 7,000 and moved into positive territory. But of course the market activity levels have not been too significant. Obviously during the month of March we have seen a sizable drop in the market activity, and then during April, of course, it's quite seasonal that it anyway comes down in April. So we've seen the same trend in April. But broadly, I think the investors are taking more wait and see approach to see how the political developments are taking place, and that's where really the market volatility comes from.
Now, you mentioned the political situation, Hasita. Now, taking that into account, what kind of message are we sending out to the investors, and also what sort of message are the investors getting from the situation in the country at this point of time?
Yeah, I think when the political change or the presidential change took place in January, I think it was no surprise that there will be some period of uncertainty, some period of preparation for stability to go through. So I think the 100-day program is just coming to an end. At least 100 days is just coming to an end. Some are delivered, some are not delivered. But fact remains, I think this uncertain period, the passage, cannot continue for too long. The 100-day program itself said that 23rd of April there will be a dissolution of the parliament, which I think is an important step to bring more stability than instability. So what it gives right now is that I don't think the last 100 days there haven't been too many issues to talk about from an investor sentiment point of view, particularly when you look at some of the policy directions, etc. So I'm not too worried about that. But if this passage is going to continue for too long, now that's really going to have a negative impact on the investor sentiment, because what is important is that if the change took place, then there is a limited period of uncertainty, and then you get more medium to long term direction clear and stabilize. So if that is seen, I think the investor community will sort of play this period on a wait and see mode and look at how things will come in the next phase. But if this period of uncertainty without an election will continue for too long, I think that's definitely going to send wrong signals to the investor community at large. But if the elections come through, then whatever the result it is, I think that result people will learn to live with it and move forward, which probably will give more certainty than where we are today. So what is important is that we go for an early election as per the mandate given, that was taken in the presidential election, and ensure that there will be some stability brought into the equation.
How will the prevailing investment climate impact economic growth this year, and how will corporate earnings be affected by this?
Yeah, so during the last, I think, 3 months, there's a little bit of a slowdown in some of the bigger projects that have been particularly funded by Chinese investments, etc. Other projects have been moving forward, and there has also been some level of uncertainty around the policy direction, whether there will be a clear change in where we are going. And then in the meantime, there is an important factor on the GSP Plus, which is the duty concessions to Europe, whether we can retain that back. So these ifs have put investors into more a wait and see approach to see how these areas will get resolved and how things will move forward to the future. So one thing it has done is that it has created a bit of a delay, and that delay will hurt the overall growth on one side, but on the other side we have also seen through the interim budget there have been an infusion of cash into the system. Some of the essential goods have been reduced in price, including petrol and diesel, the fuel. So these have created economic activity, better economic activity in the last few months, and the retail trade seem to have a positive pickup on one side, while some of the other industries like construction in particular having a little bit of a negative impact. But banking again is another area where we have seen positiveness. So broadly, I think it's important to understand that there will be some level of uncertainty that had delayed economic growth and hurt the short term, but the longer term fundamentals still haven't been seen changing. Of course, if this situation does change, and in fact if the uncertain passage ends, probably I think we can expect that the longer term fundamentals will be untouched.
Thank you for joining us, Hasita. That was market analyst and LMD columnist Hasta Premaratna. Stay tuned.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
We can show you a world, shining, shimmering, splendid, amazing, beautiful, dazzling, wondrous space for you and me. A whole new world, the future's got a whole new world for you.
The most advanced technology now on multiple smart devices for total convenience. Welcome to H&B New World Banking.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. We'll take a close look now at the latest LMD TNS survey with the head of research for TNS Lanka, Mihirani Dissanayake. Welcome to the show, Mihirani. Now this month's survey checked the pulse of the people on the performance of the interim government. So, will the government keep its promises according to the results?
Yes, Anushan, a timely topic for us to talk about. We interviewed the general community of the country about the 100-day plan of the government. Majority, around 64%, believe that this government will keep its promises. Why? They have seen the certain activities or the part of the plan has been already executed by this government, so there's no doubt about the rest of the activities. However, 1/5 of the respondents that we interviewed not sure about the government performance yet, while a similar proportions do not trust about the government show yet.
Where do respondents stand in terms of the mini budget? Has it delivered on what was promised in their view?
Very happy to see the people's optimism around the mini budget of this government. Majority believe this mini budget has supported to cut down their cost of living. However, 1/5 again is not sure or suspect the support that the mini budget has given so far. This worry about the mini budget is clearly coming from the fact that the budget has not addressed prices of essential goods of this country.
Do respondents expect future elections to be free and fair?
As both of us is aware, there's a certain level of cynicism about the election in this country generally. Same way, the respondents that we interviewed also do not have overwhelming opinion about the upcoming election. Just about 1/3 of the respondents believe this election will be free from violence. The trust about the election seems to be coming from areas outside Colombo mainly. The majority of the people who we interviewed in Colombo seems to have a doubt about the upcoming election. There's an interesting point for me to take it here, which is relevant to the question. We also interviewed people around the trust that they have towards the newly appointed cabinet of the government. Just a third of the respondents believe this cabinet will be free from corruption. So this entire negativity, negative perception about people involved in this government must be driving the suspicions about the upcoming election too.
Thank you very much for joining us, Mihirani. That was the head of research for TNS Lanka, Mihirani Dissanayake. Thank you for watching Benchmark, and we hope to see you again next time.